Okay, so now do you think anything good came of Impressionism?
Yes, something very good came of Impressionism, which is something that all three of us utilize every day as we work, which is the understanding of the color of light. We had a greater understanding after Impressionism of the color of light than we did before it. And in my opinion, the artists that best utilized that were the artists around the turn of the century. That here you have this idea that light has color, okay? You have, say, a warm light source like sun, and you have cool shadows. Artists that best utilized that were incredible draftsmen, had incredible use of value and tonal range, and could then take this idea that there's a warm light source and cool shadows and create just an incredible symphony of color within the constructs of good draftsmanship.
And you think that came from Impressionism?
And that came from Impressionism. They had to have influenced each other, just like you guys influenced me in our day-to-day interactions. So too would Monet have influenced Sargent, and he did. They were friends. They painted together. You had so Sargent's one person that was influenced. Bastien Lepage. You have Waterhouse was influenced. Dixie was influenced. Herbert Draper was influenced. Those are just a few small Bussier, small sampling of artists that were painting at the turn of the century that used an Impressionist palette with academic draftsmanship. But those guys are forgotten, whereas we sort of parade this inability to draw as a great thing. Oh well, they were being more creative and being different. Were they being different, or could they just not draw very well?
Right.
Or do
good
we
marketing sucky skills? Bottom line.
Bottom line, or do we say that because we can't really accept Picasso without sort of making this rule change as to what good art is?
But isn't art subjective, and don't we all pretty much critique it based on all the things that we've learned?
Sure.
Let's say as a three-person group here, like we all like realism.
Right.
So wouldn't we judge abstractness on, it's not even something we consider?
No, I'm pretty open-minded to it. I
You
was
like
trained,
abstract?
well, I started school in the late 70s, and I had, say, at least half of my teachers did abstract artwork, but came from traditional background. And I was very fortunate that they made me practice drawing. They just didn't let me get away with doing splashes of color everywhere. But they influenced me and opened my eyes to it. Now, do I like it for the most part? No. I think 90% of it is garbage. I think there are some good abstract painters, but I think they're trying to do something different than just draw something realistic. You know, and a good friend of mine who's a great painter, his name is Frank Bruckman, he said once to he said, those are the real artists. He said, we're just copyists. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, because we do make up scenes that have never been seen by anybody before. We think of it in our heads. But when I'm painting a still life, am I just copying it, or am I painting? Now, there comes a point where I start up copying it, but then at some point I have to become creative. Just as creative if I was doing an abstract painting, because I can't just copy everything I see and turn out a good painting. I have to make decisions and use that as a point of reference to paint from. But I think that we are more influenced by our subject matter and controlled by it than an abstract painter. I think they're freer to do what they want. Doesn't necessarily mean they're making a good painting. And a lot of them believe that it's the process, not the end result. That one I never understood. I had a good teacher at the academy. His name was Ron Scher, and he said to us, it doesn't matter how you get there, the only thing that's important is the end result. And the quicker you can get to the end result, and the better you can get to that end result, the better painting you have. So I don't agree with my original teachers that I had at the beginning, where they talked a lot about the process. But I do like some abstract painters.
I do like some abstract painters as well. I wouldn't say that just how real something is makes it good. I think that if we were to all look at things from the Renaissance or things from the 1600s, Rembrandt and Rubens era, and things from the 1900s, there would be a general consensus as to what we determined was good about it and what was bad about it. Good use of form, good use of value, good use of composition, so on and so forth. When we get to abstraction, in order for us to determine that it's good, we have to change the rules. We have to change.
It's not good or bad anymore.
It's not
interesting.
It's interesting. Oh,
Right.
that's intriguing. Oh,
But
that's
there is
different.
good or bad, because you can have
There
bad
is.
composition.
Sure, sure.
You can have bad
Yeah,
use
balance
of
of color.
color.
Right, but you
balance of
can't
colors.
really oftentimes use the same criteria that you use
Right.
for the representational stuff. So at that point, it becomes something different. I won't say that it's not art, but it's definitely not in the same category as
Well,
what
that's why they
we
say it's
enjoy.
interpretive, pretty much.
Sure.
It's almost not the same art form as a realistic painting.
Right, it's become something else. It
Right.
becomes dance, it becomes
So it could be a
music.
sculpting, it could be stone carving, it's not even.
It could be a
Yeah,
painting,
Right.
but you can't even put it in the same category. That's
Right.
what I think.
Mhm.
How can you? But there is a real good point to make that just because something's rendered very tightly and looks very realistic does not make it a good painting.
Absolutely. I couldn't
That
agree
is a
more.
tool that you use. That is equivalent to a guitarist learning to play his guitar really fast. Just because he's playing the guitar really fast doesn't make him a good musician. It's how he controls that, when he speeds up, when he slows down. And the tool of rendering in realistic painting is only a tool. And the best artists in the world I've ever seen are the ones that learn to control that.
Sure.
Where in the painting do they render very tight, and where in the painting do they leave areas more blown off?
But that goes to just because something has really, really vibrant color or something has really, really thick paint, any of these sort of arbitrary distinctions that we can throw onto painting, oh, well, you know, this artist is great because he used strong color. Well, yeah, use strong color, but... you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, that always cracked me up. You get a lot of laymen sometimes that say, oh, I love this painting, I just love that blue. And it's like, well, you can go down to the art store, you can buy that. It's called phthalo blue. You scored it out, you put it on your painting. You could paint your kitchen wall that color. That doesn't make it a good painting.
Right,
Right.
it's sort of an arbitrary reason as to
But
why we
controlling
like it.
the way you render
Controlling
things,
is
I think, do make
Yep.
a good painting.
Sure, just like controlling the way you use strong or weak chroma and strong or weak color
Right.
makes a great painting.
So we're kind of all in agreement here. We are realistic painters, and would our painting type be considered realism? What would it be called?
I don't know necessarily realism. Realism was a very small part of art history. It's definitely representational art.
Or representational?
Yeah, and but realism was a very small part of art history.
Right.
We use it today
We use
because
the
more
term
people
loosely,
use it.
right.
So it has a broader definition
And
today. But
all three of us mostly hate Impressionism and Post-Impressionism
definitely post-impressionism.
and definitely abstract art.
For the most part.
For the
yes.
most part, yes.
It's enjoyable to see pretty colors put together or shapes put together, but
But I think
I
I
don't get the
do
concept.
have to
Sorry.
say something with the first group of Impressionists that I saw a lot of Degas' work when he was younger and painting, I guess, more realistically. And some of it, I think, is really beautiful.
It's incredibly beautiful, and some of the work of the other early Impressionists that are not really well known, I think far surpasses Monet, Manet, Renoir, and Degas altogether. I don't know their names off the top of my head.
But they
there
became
are
the
groups.
superstars.
But the ones that became the superstars,
It's all
sort of
about the shop
shadow.
value.
Right.
You know, I
so
do
marketing is marketing.
One other thing touching on that point before we wrap this up is a lot of people get, I don't know, crazy reading some of these critics' reviews on the way they portray a piece and the discussion about it. Words you sometimes can't even comprehend or put together. And somebody seems to get it, and I feel like an idiot when I read this. I'm not getting it.
A lot of what that is it's Art Talk 101. What they want to do is they want to intimidate you and use strong language, not strong language, but big words, you know, $5 words, to really sort of twist the subject so that you can't have a rational conversation about it.
Right.
And a lot of what it is it's just sort of, it's postmodern recontextualizing, a nice buzzword. What that means is that they're going to turn something, take what it was meant to be or what it was supposed to be, and put their own little spin on it and their own agenda on it for, say, gender reasons or political reasons or all these different reasons that have really very, very little to do with what the art had to do in the beginning. And it makes you as the viewer, the reader, scared to really sort of look at it and go like, no,
Like
I
it or
don't
don't.
agree with that. You know, I've got to look up half the words in this sentence. And,
Now you have to show everybody your dog.
Yeah, let's have
Absolutely.
Spartacus wave goodbye to
The
everybody.
dog is asleep, but he says, No to modernism and yay to realism.
Let's